Hello, are you interested in mathematics, philosophy, logic, science? And if you have a doubt in any of those subjects, even if you are studying in IIT and you are IIT graduate, the India's most prestigious institute, and you have doubt in mathematics and logic and philosophy, don't worry. Mr. Jaggi Sadhguru Vasudev is here to help you, and he's going to give you reason, logic, that and persuade you and convince you that mathematics, especially calculus, trigonometry, are illogical. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. How the heck this is happening? Like all over the IITs in India, and people invite him and he goes there and tell them in the face that mathematics is illogic in IIT, and they're laughing and clapping. My gosh, is this what happening in IITs? Ha. I totally lost respect to those IITs. Okay.
I want to ask you that what is logic and why it looks as logical means because whenever I start thinking means it seems that means this is logical and this is logical, but when I do the maths, so there is a ambiguity. So if it is logical, then why it is not coming through the math? Or the second question is how to express means of myself. The feeling which I have don't have words. So how to create means of words for my feeling that means what I actually feel, and means how to understand the others, that what is going on in me.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, so I think he's kind of dyslexic, so he struggled to express it, but it's normal. Anyway, so let me try to explain his question, and probably he's just mixed up. I might not be explaining exactly what he said, but I kind of get the idea. So he started with asking, what is logic? And he says, if I think there's something logic, then it feels like logic, and I'm not always able to write it in mathematics, because and presumption is that math is always logical. So I don't know what he means. It seems logical. He's talking about the nature of the world, or human, like in a civilization, in a societal issue, anything he sees logical, and he's struggling to express in mathematics. I don't know, but that's how he's saying that it seems logical. Then but I am not always able to express in mathematics. And he also says, like, I have some thinking comes in my mind, but I'm not able to always express in words. So as if like he has profound idea about some profound concept that still doesn't have any words, and he has to come up with words. And how do I come up with words and express it? So that's how it sounded like, but I'm not sure if he talks about some quantum field mechanics and he came up with it and he doesn't know how to express it, or it's just like this self-help and feel-good and consciousness and spirituality, something he profoundly found out and did a yoga, and he doesn't know how to express it and how to tell others. And also another question he asked, like, how do I know what other thinking? So that's his question. So before we go into Jaggi's answer, let me explain, like, what's the philosophical basis for this question like logic and what is self, what is non-self, how do we know what other thinking? Like I see a color, some color say yellow, and you see color yellow, and we both agree yellow. But how do I know that yellow looks like what it's in my mind? How do I know? Does it yellow looks like red to you, but you still identify that it's yellow, and we are in agreement? Whenever you look yellow or red, then you say it's that the yellow is as it looks as a red in your vision, or it's yellow. It looks like yellow in your mind. That I don't know. That's why it's a subjective. So how do we know? We may not ever know. So those are the philosophical argument. Okay, let's start with the logic. What's the logic? So before we go into the meaning of logic, where the word logic comes from. So it comes from the Greek word logos. So if you go back to Aristotle philosophical writing, like rhetoric, he talks about, this is about like how to persuade your audience, how to convince them. So he says 3 ways: logos, pathos, ethos. So logos, that's where the word logic comes from. So logos is you persuade your audience by giving them reason. So that's how, if you put in a modern word, logical, talk to them in a logical sense. That's how one way to persuade them. The other is ethos. That's appeal to authority, trust in a person. So that's ethos. Then the last one, third one is pathos. You appeal to emotions. So talking about emotion, that's Mr. Jaggi Sadhguru's brand. Just to appeal to your emotion, and just to say like what is to be like a human, and you're not just one life. You are part of this earth. Your life. You are part of this cosmic vibration. There's a dimension in everything, and that part of the dimension is in you. The earth is a dimension, and you are in that dimension. And don't think about these modern layman science. There's a profound meaningful science. It's called yogic science. And 15,000 years ago, all the yogis, Shiva told us what is yogic science. He figured out all those answers. That's where we know all the cosmic energy and the cosmic vibrations are coming from. Okay. I don't know what I say has no meaning. That's what he's saying, but you believe him, right? Because you also appeal to his ethos. So anyway, so that's the logic word from logos. So what's the logic? So let me give you an example. So in a Euclidean postulates, Euclidean geometry derives from the Euclidean postulates. So there's a postulate like a line segment can be drawn, it's derived from the 2 points in a plane. So that's a postulate. Postulate is basically idea that accepted as a self-evident. You don't need to go and explain from it. So you accept that the line is it's a segment that joining 2 points, and you don't know why it joins, how it joins. You don't need it to. You just state it as a postulate. Then from then on, you go on to derive the geometry, other geometry, planes, triangles, angles, all that stuff. So it's another like Einstein relativity postulate is the physical laws is same in all the reference frames. So in everywhere in this universe. So that's another postulate. You don't need to go and explain it, but it's already self-evident. Why? Because if you look at all the previous classical science and mathematics, that's what it tells. Like you can observe the motion of the planets, and astronomy, I think that they tell it. Einstein doesn't need to go and explain it. So that's why he stated as a postulate. But where that why some of those postulates are self-evident? Say, like, let me give you another example so you'll understand. Say, most of all human beings, we have that intuitive aversion, like a fear towards like a snake or like a lion, those animals. It comes from intuitively in our nature. So it's logical to avoid snakes. It's logical to avoid the animals like lion and cheetah and tigers. So where that come from? So that's built in our genes. It's in mind. When we grow up, our brain is easy to recognize. So it's logical, right? So the logic actually originates from the nature itself. It's in the nature, and we observe it as a self-evident. And so that's what the logic comes from. And we built upon the rest of it, and we culturally share it, and make we understand nature through mathematics. So that's what logic is. And he says, like, if it seems logical, and why I'm not able to express it in mathematics. So without him giving an example, I can only speculate. What is it that seems logical for him that he couldn't explain in mathematics? I don't know. Unless if he says that I have this idea about field of a photon in a 10 dimension or anything, like, without saying that, then, or if he said how love seems logical, and why I'm not able to express in mathematics. So, like the human consciousness, they are more complex because it comes from our mind, and still we haven't figured out how, because we cannot separate each and single neuron cells and figure out how their complex and work. So they are very more complex than two neuron works. So that's why we're not able to express in mathematics. So, but we take this as a logical. But we can still biology and evolutionary biology gives us why it's logical. So love is it's a love between like a male and female. It's logical because it is logical because it helps you to procreate and pass on the genes. If it's not love, it's not attractive, then you only have to learn and figure it out, and it's not comes to you from naturally, intuitively. It's very hard to procreate and pass on genes. So it's in your selfish gene. So so you may not able to express in mathematics yet, but logical is not just mathematics. It's part of our arguments and observation. So so that's if you're talking about love. So I don't know what was in his mind. And the last one is, and if I have some thought, and how would I able to explain? Like I don't know. Like if he came up with totally something about quantum mechanics or quantum electrodynamics, and he couldn't express it. I don't know what he means. But I want to tell one quote from Newton. So when you're talking about after his publication of Mathematica Principia, so like the reason he was able to come up with this gravitational law and be able to see further because he was standing on the shoulders of his giants. So if you have some profound thought, that means you built upon from things you already learned. So that's how like the new words created. The new words not just randomly come out of nowhere. It's built upon from other words. So like an example, logic. He came from logos, so that might not the actual word logos may have other meaning. It could have come from another previous word. So that's how like a language evolves. So yeah, so basically that's what that philosophical answer to his question. And let's see what Mr. Jaggi Vasudev Sadhguru has to say. I'm curious. Are you? You must be. Let's see. What do you got, Jaggi?
See, whether somebody else understands what's happening within me or not is not the issue. Whether I perceive what's happening within me or not is the main issue. Whether this person understands me or not is his problem. The question is, what's happening within me, is it clear to me? This is the important thing. If it's clear to me, whether I find words for it or not, doesn't matter. About logical and illogical and the mathematic, even the mathematics is only logical to a certain point. That is why they came up with calculus. It's quite illogical. Yes or no?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So because…
And did he go to IIT Bombay and say, they came up with calculus is quite illogical? He said calculus is illogical. I bet he has no clue about even algebra, let alone calculus. What kind of a moron is he? So he has no understanding what calculus is. So calculus is not just something came out of nowhere. It's built upon algebra. It's an advanced version of algebra. It's a derivative. So the normal algebra is like if you have a planet going around and normal algebraic derivation is just at one point at one time. That's how the algebraic derivation give you answer. But the calculus it's a derivative. It's a rate of change of motion. So it's not just one point. Change of motion at every point at every time. So that's an advanced version of algebra. So it's not. If algebra is logical, how calculus is illogical? They came up with the calculus is quite illogical. What an idiot! And you people, and IIT people listening to this guy, oh my gosh.
they want to explore dimensions of existence which don't all fall into simple logic. That is why we came up with mathematics or the type of mathematics that we are doing right now, which is not really logically correct, but it articulates certain aspects of the existence. So, instead of worrying about what is logical, what is illogical, life is absolutely illogical. Material is logical. So, only handling material aspects of life, we have to be perfectly logical. When it comes to other dimensions of life, it's not logical. And in fact, all the most beautiful aspects of your life are not logical. If you try to logically find expression to every dimension of your life, you will feel silly. Suppose you fall in love with somebody and you write it in prose, you will look stupid. But you write in poetry, suddenly it's beautiful, because poetry allows illogical expression, prose does not allow illogical expression. So you cannot do illogic in arithmetic or geometry, but trigonometry is there, illogical.
Oh my gosh! Oh yeah, you cannot do so. Arithmetic, geometry is logical, perfectly logical, but trigonometry and calculus is illogical. Yeah, I don't know if he is serious or joking that trigonometry is illogical, but he clearly stated that calculus is illogical. But he said mathematics itself, overall, it's illogical. So he's just rambling and gibberish. I already said that love, like where the expression comes from our mind, how do we express? So they are very more complex. So the mathematics we have, it's not there to explain it. But mathematics itself is not all about logical. Logical is mathematics is one way of expressing nature and the one way of explaining logic. You know, the nature itself logically explains it. That's in our intuition, built in our brain. It's in our gene. And it's very logical to avoid snakes. And it's very logical to avoid tiger or lion. So that's why it's very logical to fall in love. So think about if no one fall in love, then what the world would be. So it's necessary for all human beings living cohesively in a society. It's not only living together, it's necessary for pass on our genes. So the love is important. And you may say man can go on rape on it, but think about it. They are very rare case. Then the society comes up with it that prohibits it. So you can logically argue with it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be logical, or it doesn't have to feel logical or illogical to you. For you, love is how you express your feelings. So, but if you take a step and look at big view away from it, and you see, yeah, the species doing this, and in order to pass on their gene. So you can say same thing with the other species. You know, lion may fall in love with other lioness, and that's logical, right? But you don't know how it feels like to be lion. How the lion feels love to the lioness. You don't know. You can't say they're not in love. How do you say it? You can say we are in love because you have some feeling, then you are expressing it. So yeah. So what he is saying is like, there's some dimension that you cannot do it. Then just rambling. He's just rambling about how mathematics is illogical. What an idiot.
So, in every sphere of life, people have understood that logic has its limits, and they have found ways to explore life through means which are not necessarily 100% logical. Your logic fits into this life perfectly well, but don't try to fit the life into logic, it doesn't fit.
I can't do this anymore. First the question, the basic question about what is logic is still he doesn't understand what that means. He doesn't know it. And that's why he never answered it. What is logic? He has no idea. He said, he's trying to say mathematics is, some of the mathematics is logic, some is illogic. Okay, you're saying what are the things that logic, what are, okay, but do you have any understanding what is logic? Where the logic comes from? I don't think he has any clue. He's just another idiot. All he wants to do is promote his brand called Yogic Science, in which Adi Yogi already said everything. He had the answer. All you have to do is give him money and go to his foundation and don't eat garlic and onion and try to do whatever he tells you, and then you have to believe him. Then you got all the answer. If you don't believe it and still you're doing what he asks you to do, and you didn't get the answer what he says you're going to get, that means you're not trying good enough. You have to try more. You have to give him more money. Do it more. There's no end to it. It's typical charlatan and con man. That's all he's going to do. Either you can just believe in him and accept him, or try to do what he asks you to do, but you're never going to get what it is. Give him more money. That's all. He's in it for the money in your pocket. What happened to these people in IIT? They bring him to listen to this gibberish. Someone tell him stop. Tell him to stop. Stop the IIT people first. Grow up. Grow up.